Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Caroline Logan, Programme Director for BuildForce, reporting to you from a very sunny, hot Dorset day. So I do hope wherever you are, you're keeping cool and keeping safe. So please sit back, enjoy, be enthralled, get ready to ask lots of questions. Over to you, Angela.
Welcome to the BuildForce Virtual Career Chat. My name is Angela Forbes. Now, as part of our series of virtual chats, we continue to roll out the biggest, brightest and best employers across industry. And today is a corker. So Skanska were ranked #1 green builder in the United States, greenest company in the United Kingdom, and the Financial Times recognised Skanska as aiming to be the greenest contractor in the world. But what is more impressive is the size and scale. They are one of the largest contractors in the world, working on many global landmarks, continually pushing the boundaries of brilliance. So we are honoured today to bring you our new strategic partner, Skanska. Now, our speakers today are Lisa Spavins, Recruitment Manager, so she's going to be your new best friend. Kenneth McKellar, Veteran and Senior Health and Safety and Wellbeing Advisor. Ian Lech, Project Director. Helen Smith, Veteran and Bid Director. And Manny Chana, Recruitment Manager. So we will hand over to Lisa. You'll bring your presentations up. We'll switch our cameras off, Lisa.
Hello everyone. So my name is Lisa, as they mentioned there, so I'm one of the recruitment managers here at Skanska. I joined the business only in October last year, so I'm still quite new to the company, so bear with me a little bit, but I work really closely with Caroline at BuildForce and have a really good relationship with the team there in terms of bringing people into Skanska out of the forces. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today. I'm conscious of time, so I won't waffle too much because we've got some really exciting speakers, but wanted to talk to you a little bit about Skanska as a whole and just give you an idea of what the business looks like. So starting off, I think you touched on there, so we're one of the world's leading construction and project development groups. We've been running for over 138 years. One of the things that really attracted me to Skanska is the fact that we're a global business. So as you can see from there, we work on a global basis. Currently, the USA is our biggest single market. We work on some really exciting projects in the USA, particularly across North America. For me, I think Empire State Building is probably one of the most impressive that we've been involved in, and we've actually got an office space there as well. We also work heavily across Europe, so particularly within Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary and Romania. But as hopefully some of you know, we're a Swedish business, so we work heavily across the Nordics. In terms of our presence in Sweden, we've had a really big impact there from an economic and a social perspective. So for me, one of the big draws is the fact that Skanska has that global presence is really exciting. You'll have noticed it on the last slide, so that the number of people who work for Skanska, so it's almost 27,000 people who work for Skanska on a global business. So if you can imagine the amount of knowledge, the skills that we have within the business, it is absolutely huge. So for me, a really big draw is just the number of people and that breadth of knowledge and expertise that we have within the company. So before joining Skanska, I worked for a recruitment agency, and one of the really great things about that was that you get to work. I wanted to come and work for Skanska specifically is because of the reputation that we have in the market. So whenever I picked up the phone to candidates, they would always be interested in hearing about working for Skanska, and that's because we had a reputation for our values. I won't go through them, I'm sure you can read through them, but I genuinely believe that Skanska is a company who truly has strong values that actually lives by those values, which I think can be rare sometimes in this day and age. So I'd really encourage you, have a look at our website afterwards. You can literally just go and find the values and our purpose, but these are something that we really live by. So to the extent that we even recruit by these values, I guess a little insider tip is that all of our interviews is that we will ask questions to see how you align with our values. So we'll ask technical interview questions, but we will always, very importantly, focus on those value questions to make sure that those candidates that we're bringing in are a good fit for the business as well. Sustainability, I'll touch on quickly as well, because we have that reputation for being a green contractor. Sustainability is core to our projects. We have really ambitious targets in terms of sustainability. And again, I wanted to include it because it works so closely with our values. So coming on to the UK, because I guess that's probably of interest for most of you. So we've been operating in the UK since 2000. We've got over 3,000 employees and we operate right across the UK. So you can see from that map there that we really are UK wide. In terms of our main projects at the moment, just to give you a little bit of an idea. So I would say our geographies currently are, we work really heavily in London. We've got a lot of projects going on there. We work a lot around, particularly east of England currently is a big focus. So particularly across Norwich, Cambridgeshire, Huntingdon, Bedfordshire, we've got a really big presence. We go kind of further into the southwest, so into Gloucestershire as well. We've got a big presence in the Midlands at the moment, particularly in Birmingham. And then going up into the north, I would say we're probably more concentrated into the northwest currently with some of our infrastructure projects. But we also have a presence across Scotland and Ireland. So the really fantastic thing about Skanska is that we are global. So that opportunity of geography is really great as well. So I'll talk you through some of our projects. So Skanska is a massive company, and that's one of the things that appealed to me in terms of the UK is that we have such a breadth of projects that it gives us really good stability. So if I start with our building operating unit, so I'll talk about three main operating units. So we've got building, infrastructure and building services. So starting with building, they have a very heavy presence in terms of commercial office space. So if you look at that picture on the right hand side, that will give you an idea of that kind of commercial office space projects that we work on. The one that everyone knows us for is the Gherkin in central London, but we have a really good portfolio there. On the left-hand side, probably more of interest to everyone on this call is the defence projects that we work on. So we tend to work on a lot of major defence projects. We've got 2 active at the moment, but we're bidding for more work in that area and continually expanding our portfolio in that area as well. So we work a lot on major defence sites. And when we say major projects in this division, you're probably looking at projects from anything from kind of £200 million plus. So really big kind of high profile projects that we're working on there. And then they've also been heavily involved in schools. So that middle one is pointing to Bristol Schools, which was where we worked. I think it was over 15 years of work that we did across the Bristol area in terms of both primary and secondary schools there. And then infrastructure. So our infrastructure team, again, work on a really broad range of projects. HS2 is the one that you're looking at on the left-hand side. So again, has been a massive project for us across Skanska, and we worked in a joint venture there. So got to work with the expertise of other main contractors, which has been really exciting. We also work heavily within highways. So we've got Ian, who's one of our project directors. We'll speak about one of the highways projects that we're working on later today. And then we've also worked heavily in utilities. So we are on the AMP8 programme and doing more and more work within utilities and water as well. And then finally, building services. So our building services team do a range of work from mechanical and electrical and plumbing works across to facilities management. So they have contracts with people like MOD, NHS and different county councils to manage their facilities services. So that's both hard and soft services. And they also, so their MEP teams work in a joint venture with our building team. So the building team will go in and do the main construction, and then building services will work in a JV to go in and do the building services works, and the MEP works there as well. So that breadth of a portfolio for me is really attractive because it means that we work across a number of geographies, but it also means that actually we have the opportunity for that stability as well. The really good thing about Skanska is that people regularly move internally, so it's not uncommon to move within different business units. And actually, yeah, we see a number of our vacancies are filled by internal staff moving across both operating units and different projects. So really great company in terms of that opportunity for career development there as well. So that's it from me. If I stop sharing, and I think, is Ken on the call? Are we ready to go over and hear some more on health and safety?
Yep, I'm here, and thanks very much indeed for that lead in there, Lisa. So my name is Kenny McKellar. I'm a Senior Health and Safety Advisor on the A428 Black Cat project, with the client being National Highways. And it's a £1 billion project where we're looking to deliver a dual carriageway between St Neots and Cambridge. So it's quite an extensive project. Anyway, my journey into health and safety kind of started off by accident, which tends to be a lot of how people get into that. My background as a veteran was in the Royal Military Police. I can see now that there's a lot of disinterest in the room. Yeah, there you go, Paul. Thank you very much for that. But, you know, I would say that my experience in the RMP, however, has actually set me up quite nicely for doing the role as a health and safety advisor. When I left the forces, it was in 1995, so it was a little while ago, but I still experienced the same challenges as what a lot of you might experience, although things are, believe it or not, a little bit easier for you guys nowadays than what it was for me. The reason for that is because when I left, we didn't have the Armed Forces Covenant that a lot of businesses are signing up to and supporting. So Skanska, massive advocate, we've just re-signed the Armed Forces Covenant. And that means that anybody leaving from the armed forces, we will try and prioritise to get them into the business, because a lot of what you have is things that you can't teach people. It's discipline, it's a work ethic, it's a camaraderie and a teamwork mindset that a lot of, as you guys would call it, civvies, they don't have that. And I think most people that come into Civvy Street, there's a lot of things that you can be taught. The things that we would look for, you can't teach, but that's what you've got in abundance. A day-to-day expose as to what I would do. There's a whole lot of different things that we have to do in a health and safety team. So it's things like reviewing risk assessments and method statements to make sure that the works are going to be undertaken safely, making sure that all the considerations have been done. There's also things like the investigation. So being ex-RMP, having done lots of investigations, having a keen eye for evidence and detail, that really does help. And it's also been able to compile a report in a succinct manner that you can then present to senior leaderships and business directors as well, which goes into communication skills. Being able to communicate is massively important. I think that when it comes to being a health and safety professional, you're essentially, the best analogy I could draw is you're a salesman trying to sell something that people don't want some of the time. So you've got to be able to try and win people round, and you've got to stand by the courage of your convictions as to why your arguments are important, should be listened to, and that what you're saying is actually worth investing in, because that's exactly what health and safety is. It's an investment. And if you're investing in your staff, you're going to invest in your future. The role itself, we have to be compliant with the law and regulations. So the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, very much the cornerstone of what we do. So being familiar with that, if you've got an interest in anything to do with law, regulations and compliance, it's definitely something that you probably find interesting. But remember, there's a lot of people that seem to think that health and safety is policing a workforce. I don't like that term, policing. I think it should be viewed more as an enabling function. So you're there to try and enable people to be able to do their jobs and to do the job safely, to allow packages of work to proceed, because all the right mechanisms are in place for that to be undertaken safely. Sometimes that can be a real challenge. I think that if you're going to be looking at coming into a health and safety role, some of the qualifications that you would need, you would definitely want to get your NEBOSH in construction. So the NEBOSH is the standard. It's kind of like the gold standard for health and safety. NEBOSH in construction, I did mine 8 years ago. I had no experience in construction. In 8 years, I've been very fortunate that I've worked for some really good companies, got myself up to a senior position on the Skanska role at the Black Cat project. I'm currently doing my NVQ level 6, which is the diploma equivalent, where it basically takes you to the next level of your journey into health and safety. So the two main things that I would say that you need, your NEBOSH in construction and then your NVQ level 6. If you're quite academic, if you've got the time, then go and do the NEBOSH diploma. But I will warn you that that's quite a heavy piece of sort of training to get through and to get that certificate. So I take my hat off to anyone that does that. The difference between the NEBOSH diploma and the NVQ level 6 is that you're very much in a learning environment for the NEBOSH diploma, whereas for the NVQ level 6, you're in a working environment. So you're taking things that you use as part of your day-to-day documents, emails, processes, systems that you use, and that's the evidence that forms part of your diploma. And then obviously you've got your questions and your dissertations that you have to do with that. Another thing that I would always say is my background before coming into health and safety was actually learning and development. So as part of that, I did my PETALS, which is the Preparing to Teach in the Lifelong Learning sector. So if you get the opportunity to do anything that's a training facilitating qualification, I would strongly recommend that you get that under your belt. I'm not sure what sort of qualifications you guys have been offered as part of your resettlement packages or anything that you're looking to be awarded before you leave the service. Certainly that's something that I would ask for. You could also go for the award in education and training, or the AET level 3. So that's the equivalent of the petals. Again, another really strong tool and qualification to have for being able to teach and to present. One of the things that health and safety professionals quite often have to do, they will facilitate training sessions quite often about health and safety as well. So if you've got that as a background, it's definitely beneficial to have. I should imagine that most people in the service, though, you have to do some sort of degree of presentations to either your platoons, your troops, or even when you have to do the cabaret every now and again. I certainly remember back to the days when I did the cabaret, and I won't go into it because it'll make you blush. But anyway, definitely communication, very, very important. Because relationship building is very much a strength that you will need to have when it comes to working in the world of health and safety. I don't really know that there's much else that I can talk about in terms of the role that I do. What I would say is that if you're offered anything that's a course or a qualification with regards to health and safety, if that's something that you're interested in, please embrace it, take it, get on board with it, and don't let your mind be a barrier. Just make sure that when you decide what you want to do, and if it is that's the thing that you want to do and it's a path you want to go down, then there's nothing going to stop you. And if you do wind up coming to Skanska, even as a novice or somebody that's new, there's a rich pool of talent and experience that's going to be around you, and we will support you, we will bring you through, and we'll get you up to the level that you want to be at. Don't forget, it's like anything else. You only get out of what you put in. So if you put in the effort, put in the time, you'll get something out of that. And it's a very rewarding role, I will say that. So that's about it from me. I know that I've got a habit of talking over time, but I think I've come in about 7 minutes, even though I had 10. So there you go. I'm giving you 3 minutes back. And you have actually seen that I am able to talk for less than 10 minutes. Sophie Potts will take me up on that.
Thanks, Kenneth. The questions are coming flooding in. So we'll hand to your colleague, Ian Letch.
Hi, thanks for that, Angela.
Hi.
Thanks, Kenneth. So I'm Ian Letch, Project Director for Skanska on the A47 at Thickthorn. This is a project that sits just outside of Norwich, so I'll hopefully share my screen. Yeah, project that sits just outside of Norwich. This time round, I've been with Skanska since November, and say this time around because I originally joined the business back in 2009 and spent 13 years with Skanska, went away for a little bit and came back. Alluding to what Lisa was talking about, it was very much around the culture and the values of Skanska as to why I've come back to the business. I've taken quite a traditional route to project director, having undertaken a degree at university in civil engineering, and then worked my way up through engineering, site engineering, and then up through project management to be project director. In my role, I'm fully accountable and responsible for the whole of the project, making sure that everybody goes home safe every day. We deliver the project on time, to budget, and deliver the benefits to the client. So the project we're doing at Norwich sits just outside Norwich at the junction of the A47 that you can see here that goes from west to east heading out towards Yarmouth, and the head of the A11 that comes from the M11 up towards Norwich. The problem here is that, especially in summertime, a lot of holiday makers come up the A11 and want to go east towards Yarmouth, and this tails back southwards along the A11, and also people coming back from Yarmouth tail back on the A47 to go back along on the A11. With the tailbacks, this creates massive safety concerns. There's been a huge amount of incidents on this junction over the years, even fatalities. So where Skanska come in is we're creating a new free flow link road to take traffic off of the A11 and run directly onto the A47. This rendered view will probably show it a bit clearer for you. So we've got a free flow link road. To create this, we've got new bridges and underpasses to construct. and the hope is that this creates new capacity onto the existing roundabout. So to do this, we need everybody. At our peak, we'll have over 300 people on the job, with around 70 to 80 direct employed with Skanska. Direct employed come in the form disciplines of commercial, project management, engineering, HR, health and safety, as Kenneth has talked about. We've got all ages, all kinds of people coming in. What we're trying to do with the region is actually leave a legacy. So we're actually employing people that haven't necessarily worked in construction previously. As Kenneth was talking about, we've in Skanska, we have a buddy up system to make sure that every individual that works on our project leave the project in a better position than when they first joined. So that's through development and training. And one part of that is our buddying up system. The other part, I said that around 70 to 80 people direct, but over 300 people on the project at peak. That comes in through our supply chain. So with our plant supply, labour supply, and specialist contractors, who are all calling out for people within the region who we work closely with to ensure that we're providing that legacy to the region afterwards and upskilling the region. We do a lot of work with other areas as well as with the armed forces, trying to get people back into work and improve their development. Other than that, on the scheme, it's a fairly traditional road job. We've got around 1.5 kilometres of new link road here. We've got another 1.5 kilometres of link road for local traffic running over the A11 here, and a filter lane coming back from the A47 to the A11 here. Some of our structures are quite interesting, especially from a nerdy engineer. To minimise the impact to the road users, our bridges are actually built offline. So this bridge here is built up in workshop and is actually constructed on site like a massive piece of Lego. What that does is mean that we don't need to close the road as much as traditional construction, and we can close it over weekends and nights to install piece by piece. And then this bridge over here again is being fabricated up in Doncaster by part of our business, brought offline and then lifted in over a weekend. So I think that's about it for the scheme itself, and a very quick glimpse of how I've got to where I am. Now that's only taken me sort of 6 minutes, but hopefully that's given you a good overview of the scheme in Norwich and an idea of what we're doing.
Ian, that's fantastic. Loads of questions I've got as well. So we'll pass to your colleague Helen and we'll come back to you in the Q&A. Thank you for that, Ian.
Thanks, Angela. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to take a slightly different slant on this because I want to talk you through my journey. I'm an Army veteran, now an RAF reservist, and I've been with Skanska since December 2017. And I retired from the regular army after 23 years at the end of November 2017. And a couple of years before that, I'd never even heard of Skanska, but I had the privilege of commanding a reserve unit as a regular, and we hosted some employers over in Cyprus, and 2 individuals from Skanska came over and we got chatting, and it became apparent pretty quickly that our values and standards were pretty much aligned from the values and standards that I'd experienced during my time in the British Army with the values and standards that Skanska have. So to cut long story short, I remained in touch with Skanska. They took me to head office, introduced me to a couple of the opportunities, and actually looked at me as an individual, not with my particular background, because I've got no construction background, no engineering background. I am very much an arts-based individual, so completely out of my depth as I thought coming to the construction industry, but they looked at my transferable skills, and Skanska found a home for me close to where I was living. At the time when I left the regular army, I'd gone from 2 years up in Dundee down to doing a year in main building, and home for us was North Lincolnshire. Skanska then found me a role on a contract on the Alliance contract, which is working with Anglian Water, where I had sites within an hour of home in Lincolnshire, which was tremendous. So as soon as I jumped into life in Skanska, I had a much better work-life balance. So being ex-military, get itchy feet every couple of years, and what Skanska's enabled me to do is move around the business. So I thought I'd just touch on what I've done and a couple of additional pieces that gives you a bit more of a flavour of Skanska. So I initially joined Skanska as a project manager in water recycling on infrastructure, and that was based, as I've just already alluded to, in the At1 Alliance. Head office for that was Peterborough, but I was able to go to my sites up in North Lincolnshire. 2 years doing that, I had my fill. I thought I need something else, and I had the opportunity to interview for the head of logistics, which was moving over to our then gas contract, where we were doing a joint venture with Morrison's, and that was working for the client Cadent. And I did the head of logistics for 18 months, including the demobilisation of that particular gas contract, because Skanska withdrew from that and we closed the whole contract down. I then interviewed again and jumped back into yet another promotion, which was senior project manager, back in the At1 Alliance, but this time having the responsibility of a £50 million portfolio and a number of project managers working for me. Did 3 years there. Again, thought, oh, what else can I do? Because you've got the opportunity in Skanska to stay in one location, but because I'd moved so many times during my military career, I just wanted to experience a little bit more of the organisation. So I was then seconded to pre-construction in the operating unit infrastructure, which is where I'd been during my water and gas time. And I jumped over into the defence side of life. Now, whilst defence has been in my DNA, going in as a bid director, that was something completely new. But again, recognise that I had transferable skills, and I will always turn to my subject matter experts if I'm stuck for anything. So I sat there until April this year in infrastructure, dealing with some potential defence opportunities. And then I've been moved over to the building operating unit, which has been a fantastic move. And I'm now still in defence, still in pre-construction, but I'm leading a number of significant defence opportunities for Skanska, which is incredibly exciting. And I never thought I'd be in this position when I was looking at joining Skanska way back in 2017. In addition to that, since May 2020, I've been fortunate to chair the Skanska Military Network. It's one of 6 employee networks. I recently handed over the chair of that to one of my colleagues, because actually 5 years in role, we need some new blood coming in, new ideas. And whilst I'll still be an active member of the network, it's only right that someone else gets to take the helm and take the network onto bigger and better things. But what I will say about the network, it provides a safe space and support for anybody who's not only served, but maybe is linked to the military in any form, or indeed is just an ally and works with somebody who is ex-military and wants to just understand a little bit more about what makes them tick. I've had some wonderful opportunities with the network. We've had functions on HMS President, Henry VIII wine cellar, and last month we had the tower. We utilised the officers' mess in the Tower of London and held a joint event with Military Network and the Pride Network to celebrate 25 years since the repeal of the anti-LGBTQ+ laws in the military, which was just a fantastic opportunity for 2 employee networks to get together. I think my view of this is I've come from a completely non-construction, non-engineering background. If I can do it, anybody can. Every day was a school day as I started off my journey in the big wide civilian world in Skanska as a project manager, but I just used my transferable skills. I turned to my subject matter experts, very much what I would do in the military anyway. And Skanska has been a great support for me as well, because I initially started my journey as an army reservist, having left the regular army, and then 18 months ago I transferred over to the Air Force Reserves, where I'm currently an Air Regional Employer Engagement Officer for the North East of England. Skanska hold the Gold Employer Recognition Scheme Award. We successfully revalidated about 2.5 years ago. A huge advocate of the armed forces community, and Skanska enables me not only to do my day job, but also the flexibility to have up to 15 days additional paid leave to go and do my Air Force role, as well as run the Inter-Service Ice Sports Championships, because as well as my RAF Reserve role, I'm also chair of United Kingdom Armed Forces Winter Sports bobsleigh. So I get to go away a week, a year and run bobsleigh. And again, if I didn't have the support of Skanska, that would all fall by the wayside. So, I can absolutely hand on heart say that Skanska has looked after me. And what attracted me to Skanska was just the values and standards. And Lisa touched on those earlier on, but very much I've lived and breathed the Army's values and standards for all those years. And it was just a lovely segue into Skanska and following their code and values. And I really do genuinely think I found my second tribe. I was really happy in the Army, but then it came to a point where family life was becoming really important. I had a young daughter, and actually Skanska has given me that opportunity to really balance work and family life. And as I've said, find my tribe. A couple of additional things. So with Skanska, I live in South Yorkshire. Buildings main office is down in the centre of London. I have the opportunity to do hybrid working. I cut in and out of London. I can go to our cementation office in Bentley. I can also get out on site. My roles have been a mixture of being out on site when I was in water and gas, as well as being back in the office, and now very much in pre-construction. It is very client and potential client focused, which is brilliant. So as well as doing the bid director, I'm also doing some business development. And again, my transferable skills from my time in the military has really come to the front there. And yeah, just to reiterate, I had no qualifications, yet here I am, no construction qualifications. But if you have an opportunity and you can go out and do some of your project management qualifications, I'd highly recommend doing APM. I was fortunate. I got into Skanska without having any of those specific professional qualifications. But if you do have an opportunity to get your APM, I'd absolutely say go and do it. And one tip, don't be afraid to take that perceived step back when you leave the military and join any civilian organisation. It's worth taking a step back to get your foot in the door, find an organisation that works for you, and then you can promote from there. And I'm proof that it does work. I took a step back when I left my role in the Army, did a project manager role for 2 years, and then I've just stepped up every single time, and I've absolutely zero regrets. And I really do feel that I've found my second tribe, and here I am almost 8 years in. I haven't jumped around different organisations. I've stayed with Skanska, but I've had the ability to move around, and it's worked really well for me. And obviously later on, I'll be happy to answer questions. But for now, that's me.
Ellen, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. Brilliant advice there. So we're definitely coming back to that. And we'll hand over to your final colleague, Manny.
Thank you for that. And I hope you enjoyed all the speakers so far. Helen, that was a great story. I work as part of the recruitment team as well as Lisa. Initially, I was in a bit of a crossroads before I got into recruitment, didn't really know what I wanted to do. When I decided I wanted to get into recruitment, the area that I was most interested in was construction. And the reason why construction was such an interest to me is because of the varied projects and the varied of roles that you can recruit for. Initially started on the agency side, and one of the companies that I did supply was Skanska, and immediately I think I supplied them for about a year. And one of the things that stood out to me, like many people on this call who have joined Skanska, was the values piece. And I thought to myself, I really want to get an opportunity one day to work for Skanska. Thankfully, that opportunity came about 5 years ago. And since then, I started out initially working on the buildings team and then moved over to infrastructure about a year and a bit ago. It's only at Skanska I got the opportunity to work with forces, and I hadn't done this previously. And I've been on days away with Helen, who's heard earlier, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and getting to know the forces and getting to know about what their stories are and trying to incorporate it with roles at Skanska. And Ian, who you heard from earlier, the project that he looks after, the A47, is one of the projects that I've been recruiting for. And in terms of roles on that project, they very much vary. And I know people think of construction, they think of very much like on-site roles, very, very heavy on the ground. But within that project, I've recruited on the digital side of it, where there is that flexibility to work more hybridly, and it works with data. They have been roles such as buyer roles, which is also hybrid, works with numbers a lot. You can work on the commercial side of it as well. So it's another reason why I love the sector. There's such a variance in terms of what you can do. And we see so many people at Skanska who have had different journeys in their career. Some have started off in engineers and gone on to different paths. And I think that's one of the great things about Skanska, and why I'd always recommend looking into trying to get employment here and just looking into it as a whole. Active roles that I've currently got at the moment on infrastructure projects, we've had site engineer roles, which we do look at a lot of transferable skills on. That's almost like the opening into the industry. Above that, we've got section engineer roles, sub-agent roles, agent roles. They all link quite nicely together, and that's the beautiful thing about the project as well. They do look at a lot of transferable skills, and they are very, very open to different experiences. As well as that, we can do head office roles as well, which is, we always look for expansion in our HR team as well, anywhere from HR administrators to working on actual HR business partners. If you see our head office in Watford, if you have a look at it afterwards, it's such a beautiful new office that we moved into about 2-3 years ago, and even there we can look at IT roles as well. So there's such a varied source of roles, especially if you like construction, you're just not quite sure what it is. We can always help you along the way, and that's what myself, Lisa, and the other recruitment team are. We're not just there to help you find roles, we'll help you give advice in terms of where you think your career wants to go and what skills you do have, and we can advise you in terms of what career path might be right for you. But yeah, that's all I've got. If you get any other questions, please do ask in the Q&A.
Perfect, Manny. Thank you very much. If I could ask all our speakers to switch their cameras on if they're able to. If you do have a question, just please raise your hand or write them in the box. Okay, everybody back on. Right, we'll start with a couple of questions that have come in just to get you going. A question's come in asking, do Skanska have a veterans employment scheme? So I think that's two things, isn't it? It's just a formal military programme to encourage service leavers and veterans into the business, and then once on the other side, probably a veterans programme just to look after each other. Manny, we'll ask that to you. You're mute, that's it.
Yeah. Do we offer... I'm not quite sure on this one. Is Helen, do you know?
Lynn, sorry.
Yes, so I can add on to that.
Cool.
We are trying to build a formal pathway in, and that's one of the great things about working with BuildForce. But very much what we do is, because we are gold employer recognition scheme, we do have that commitment to screen and interview. And what we do within the military network as support for the recruitment team is we will assist in the screening of military CVs, because with the best will in the world, you can't necessarily civilianize them. I really struggled when I left the military, and rather than have CVs put on the discarded pile because they're not seen to have the essential and desirable competencies, what we will do in the military network is link in, as I said, with recruiting, and be able to talk about what a specific piece in a CV means. And also with some of our more experienced veterans within Skanska, they can say, well, actually, this individual, because of X, Y, Z, will be ideally suited to here. So it's a bit of a waffle around that question. We are looking at doing one, but in the meantime, we certainly do have that support to give as many veterans the best opportunity to find a home within Skanska.
Okay, and just to confirm, Helen, for you to have got to gold within the Armed Forces Covenant Scheme, you're huge supporters of reservists and have been for years. Your testimony to that. You have brought BuildForce on board as your military partner to now formalise that military programme and make it easier. But coincidentally, you've got a healthy complement of veterans within the business. So sometimes companies have been doing it, indirectly. And that's one thing about veterans, they're good at supporting others into the business. And I think Ian had mentioned the buddying system, which we'll get to in a moment. So sometimes good companies have actually got the infrastructure without trying. And I think what you're trying to do is just bring it all together for a formal military programme, which it sounds as if it's already there, but it just needs a bit more formalisation. So thank you for that. So the other question that has come in from Pat, are there any graduate programmes? So I assume that there's grad and undergrad programmes there within the business.
Shall I
Pat,
take that one?
Yeah, hi there.
Yeah. So we have a separate team who focus on all of our early careers and graduate recruitment. So that would include apprenticeships and graduates who are coming from university as well. So we've got some really good programs there that offer different rotations as well in terms of getting opportunity to see different areas of the business. That is a separate team, so it's not something that Manny and I are super involved in, but it is a really good pathway for people who are coming into their first role in construction. It is generally aimed at people who are like new apprentices or new graduates, so recent graduates, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, I know we've got a fantastic scheme there and we have really good uptake on that every year.
So if a veteran or a service leaver, so somebody who has served, is looking to upskill and go through the degree route or even day release, so uni 1 day a week and working the other 4, the Skanska is definitely somewhere for them to look. That's an option for them.
Yeah, and I would say that would even sit alongside. We have a few people that do that within the business who don't go through our formal graduate intake through the graduate programme, but do that anyway in their role. So I know that particularly on the commercial side, we have a number of people in building who are still studying, maybe have 1 day a week as day release. And the project just works around that, to be really honest. It is quite common within construction. I think we pay into the apprenticeship levy as well. So it's something that we're really supportive of. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be that formal graduate scheme route. If you're still upskilling and still wanting to learn, it's often something that can be decided on kind of project level and agreed as well. So I think Skanska is very big on development and we're always willing to have those conversations. So it's hard to answer on a general basis, but if you have specific examples as well, we're always happy to look into that for you as well.
If I could just add to that, because I'm actually an apprentice myself now, because Skanska, at my age, Skanska have rolled out apprenticeships, and I'm doing a data and business insights apprenticeship, quite a low level one, but during my military career, had I ever played with data? No. And then coming in to do the roles I've done in Skanska, there are experts there who do that and manipulate it. So Skanska have been fantastic and have given a lot of us in the organisation this year an opportunity to enrol on an apprenticeship. So there are so many additional things you can do. I might be regretting it as the year progresses in all my projects, but it's teaching me so much. And I never thought I'd be here at the ripe old age of what I am, doing an apprentice or being an apprentice.
22, Helen, 22, we're assuming you are. So it's a great answer to Pat. It gives you 2 bites of the cherry. So either go through the formal grad or undergrad programme or just through the kind of conventional route in. So in terms of that route in, then who or where is the best place for CVs to be sent? Is it via Caroline so that she can actually structure it through the military lead? Would that be the preference? Caroline's nodding.
Yeah, and I can send a follow-up. We do have a register your interest that's linked specifically to BuildForce because as part of GDPR, boring, but we need to get everybody onto our recruitment system and make sure that we're storing your information correctly. So Caroline, absolutely first port of call, but I can also give Caroline a link where anyone on this call today could upload their CV and their basic contact details. So things like geography, where you'd like to be based, the kind of roles you think you might be interested in. That goes onto our recruitment system in almost what we call a candidate pool, and our recruitment team can access that. And so if we were, say, looking for a site manager in Norwich, we could go and look at that pool of candidates, but also in follow-up today we can make sure that we're monitoring that as well.
Okay, and Lisa, just a question to you personally, how did you get into recruitment?
So by pure chance. I don't think many people choose to go into recruitment, do they? And actually I applied for loads and loads of graduate schemes, didn't know what I wanted to do, kept failing the graduate schemes on the psychometric test, which I don't know what that says about me, but never seemed to be able to pass them. And I got a call from somebody saying, would I be interested in working for a small recruitment company in Aylesbury? And it was close to my parents' house, so I could live at home for free. And I thought, do you know what? I'll give it a try. I'll only be there 6 months. Ended up staying 8 years. So yeah, and absolutely love it. I'm really passionate about recruitment. Really enjoy bringing people into Skanska, and particularly with BuildForce, it's such a fantastic relationship. I worked with Caroline previously when I was at ISG as well. So it's just so nice seeing people progress in their careers and develop. So yeah, something I'm really passionate about. And that's why I wanted Manny on the call today, was to have somebody to show, it doesn't just have to be a site manager or a site-based role that you look at. There are loads of opportunities at head office as well.
Right, okay, and we'll pick up on that in a moment. A question we've got Sophie Potts, Health and Safety Director, on the phone, and obviously Kenneth himself. So the theme of moving into a role within health and safety without having construction or even safety experience. So a few examples might be those from the music corps. So reliant maybe more so on transferable skills. Is health and safety a viable option for them?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Kenny, I'll probably jump in. So, going back to what Kenny had said on his talk, the backbone of your military career is what we really love. Within Skanska, you've got all the attributes that make a well-rounded individual to come into health and safety. So it really doesn't matter what you did in the military. I trained dogs, so that's probably similar to music. It's completely dissimilar to a lot of that, and I just came in because of the transferable skills that I've got within my personal self, within communications, being able to lead people. I think that they're great things that we look for. So absolutely, it doesn't matter what you did in the military, you will have the backbone that we need.
And how can they articulate that on a CV? Obviously, you'll receive 10 CVs, a lot with health and safety experience or construction experience. What's the one thing that they can say or do, particularly in that exec profile, that will catch your eye?
Yeah, I can probably relate to this as well, because as you can imagine, I can't really put cleaning kennels down on my CV as something that's transferable into health and safety. But I looked at everything that I did. So, if you're in the music corps, I'm sure that you will have gone on to ranges, you would have done some form of exercise, all those kind of things. Think about it from a civilian perspective. What did you do? So did you lead a team? Did you have briefs or talks within your team? So communication skills. There's lots of ways you can think about it without actually being military. The same as when I was looking, at health and safety, I said that I had been into where our weapons are stored. Obviously, you have to count them and make sure they're all in there correctly. Just little things like that. When you write it all down and you look at it from a civil perspective, there is so much that you do that is transferable into your CV without mentioning military.
And how much of the role is process-led, and how much of it are people skills? What does your average week look like?
It's probably different for me to be able to say that, because my average week is pretty wild at my level. But the likes of an advisor and a senior advisor, you're looking at potentially a 50-50 split. I certainly would like, you know, my advisors and senior advisors out on site physically talking to people as much as possible, especially as a young or inexperienced advisor. That's where you get your experience, by talking to people and asking what people are doing. For instance, you know, Kenny could go out and see a team that is working on a structure, and he would say, you know, morning guys, how are you doing? A bit of chit chat like you get in the military. And then around, right, explain to me what you are doing. And then it's not that he doesn't know what they're doing, but sometimes it is better for them to explain it, because then they go, oh, I haven't done that step. Ah, yes, I've deviated slightly. And it kind of starts that conversation. You know, 90% of our job is around culture, and making that culture between safety and the activity that they are doing that is safe. So I would say that communication skills is a big part, but we've also had people that aren't very good at communications, even coming from the military. They're quite quiet, believe it or not, some people are in the military. And, you know, we've brought that out of them by letting them gain the experience, and then they're more confident to be able to talk about something.
Right, okay. And Kenneth, to you as well, in terms of obviously coming from, you served within the military police, you obviously see people at their best and worst. Is that a recurring theme now as a health and safety manager as well?
It can be, yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll find, particularly when the weather's particularly bad, there's a heavy pressure on the operational team to deliver a works package within a specific time frame. You've got the client breathing down their neck. There'll be all sorts of challenges chucked into the mix. And even though the old military adage was improvise, adapt, and overcome, by default, that's what a lot of people will try and do, because they're wanting to try and deliver what they've said that they will deliver within that time frame. However, the barrier to that is the law and regulations and company policy. So what you've got to be able to do is to try and still achieve that, but still maintaining that compliance. And sometimes when you've got people that are really at a low ebb, morale's hanging out of them, it can be really tough sometimes. And I think that what you have to do is you've really got to show that you care. And it's not just showing that you care, you genuinely have to care for these people, because you will see them on the good days, you're going to see them on the bad days. And I think that you have to be seen to be a leader, as well as somebody who will comfort and support them and listen to what they have to say. And just tying into what Sophie had said about when you go out and you're looking at guys actually working at a point of works, if you're relatively inexperienced, let them be your teacher. Because all you've got to do is ask the question, what are you doing? And I'll give you a good example. I didn't know what rebar was when I was on my NEBOS construction course, and everybody in the room thought I was taking the mickey, because I'd put my hand up and said, excuse me, but what's rebar? It's a common known thing in the construction industry what rebar is, but I just didn't know. And that kind of set me up for, I didn't want to be that person getting a finger pointed at me and sort of laughed at. What I would then do is, when I was talking to people out on site, by asking them, what are you doing? Explain to me why you're doing that. What are the components that have been used? Where do they feature in that piece of the work? That's me being taught by them. And they don't know that you don't know. So sometimes it's just being confident enough to go in and do what quite a lot of people in the military do, and that's just bluff you sometimes. And they'll try all sorts of mind tricks on you. Just go in there and ask, what are you doing? Use that as your opportunity to learn, take it away, and then research it as well. We've got Google nowadays. If you don't understand something that's been said, go back and Google it. I still do that, because I hear all sorts of abbreviations. And the key thing is, don't be frightened to ask. Even at my stage in my career, I still hear abbreviations getting thrown about. Being ex-military, we love an abbreviation. I still don't know what some of them are. I will just go and ask them, excuse me, what are you saying? Don't be frightened to ask.
And just in terms of your title itself, it obviously incorporates well-being and health. So we do get some of our candidates coming through that just particularly a highlight of their career was when they were counselling and nurturing and coaching and mentoring some of the younger guys and girls coming up through, and maybe they've got more of a focus on the well-being and health aspect of the role. Is that role in its own right, or is it just part of what you do?
I think you'll always find that there will be that inextricable link between the health and safety and the well-being aspect of it. I think what seems to be a little bit of a shift within the industry certainly is the recognition that we're all pretty good at stopping accidents and preventing harm. What we've not been too good at is preventing long-term ill health. So things like asbestosis or the mesothelioma, which is a lung disease which is caused by asbestos. We're all on top of that now, but that's been replaced by silicosis, which is the cement dust. And it's looking at ways to try and prevent that long-term ill health, educating about the ways of trying to prevent. Also, being better prepared for when you actually undertake a job, when you start it, having the health and safety team involved right at the design stage, that is vital, because we are able to be consulted about what might not necessarily be thought about at the design stage, but only becomes apparent or shows itself during the construction phase. And I think that there's a lot that we can do in that enabling phase to consider some of the long-term ill health effects that could be caused by some of the works. The good thing is the industry is becoming a lot more alive to it. And because Skanska is a very forward-thinking and well-being focused company, there's a lot of support there. And if you feel that there is something that's needed, that's lacking within Skanska, it's the sort of company that will provide and facilitate that for the workforce and for you as well. They're very much a company that will listen to you, and they're always trying to improve, particularly when it comes to health and well-being.
And just around the inclusivity part, a question's come in from Pat around supporting and employing those with disabilities. So in terms of supporting those with disabilities who want to go into a site role, that's an option. You would just risk assess what their needs are and cater for it accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. And there is absolutely no difference. And Sophie, I think you're probably best qualified to comment on this about the standpoint of the business.
Yeah, definitely. We're not going to say that you can't work for the company because you have a disability, whether it's a disability we can see or a disability that we can't see. You know, there is obviously going to be at some point, depending what your disability is, but we as a company are always willing to work around that, specifically in my team anyway, for sure.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so we're a disability confident employer. So what that means is that we provide reasonable adjustments throughout the interview process and also when you're in role as well. It also means that when you're applying for a role, if you make your disability known, because obviously it's a choice, you don't have to, but if you make your disability known, we can guarantee interviews if you meet the minimum criteria of the job description. And that's to ensure that we're giving everybody an opportunity, fair opportunity as well.
Okay, and just the usual questions that come around that, a bit of hybrid working. How often are your staff working from home? Do you tend all to be site-based or head office based?
Yeah, I mean, it massively depends on the role. So some of our roles, by the nature of that position, may be fully site-based and they may be on site full time. But I would say, as a general rule, Skanska is one of the most kind of flexible and probably family-friendly businesses that I've personally worked for. So we have what's called our Flexit policy, which is essentially our flexible working policy. It is agreed very much by kind of a line manager and a project level, but on the whole, particularly in any of our offices, there's a lot of flexibility. So for example, for me, I work from home 2 days a week, but I have flexibility around my son because I need to go and pick him up from nursery and things. So yeah, absolutely. And if that's something that's important, I would really encourage candidates to discuss it with the recruitment team at application. It's not something that would put us off of a candidate. We know and we recognise that it's really important to candidates, and we try and give as much flexibility in all of our roles now.
Okay, no, thank you for that, Lisa, because it's a common question that comes up. Just one more to Kenneth and Sophie. The question has come in around kind of work experience or mentoring chats. Would you both be open for that if we were to connect you with some people that just want to chat further or come and shadow you for a day or two? Is that viable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say I do currently have 2 people in my inbox waiting for my reply. With regards to work experience and mentoring, so absolutely, if we can facilitate it in the area of the UK that we are, then by all means, yes, we will definitely love to do that, because you know we have open positions, we have positions that will be opening in the next 6 months, 12 months as the pipeline increases around the UK. So definitely.
Yeah, just off the back of what Sophie said, currently in my team, I've got somebody who's doing work experience. She's not ex-military, but she is somebody that is working for free, doing 4 days a week, shadowing myself and others in the team, and she's gaining all the experience that she wants to get because she's just newly qualified with her health and safety qualifications. And I know that it's that old adage where without experience you don't get the job, and without a job you don't get the experience. So what she's been prepared to do, once she's taking care of her childcare arrangements in the morning, she comes into work, and then she'll leave in enough time to go and do the childcare arrangements in the afternoon, 4 days a week, and she's already benefiting. The good thing for us is we feel a degree of satisfaction because we're actually passing on the skills and the experience that's going to enrich her for her career journey. And it also means that, being a typical Scotsman, we're getting something for free. So, we're not going to knock it.
For so many different reasons, Kenneth. Right, just an obvious question. What does good work experience look like? So they'll turn up on day one, kind of smart casual dress. Remember, these can be kind of 30, 40, 50-year-old men and women. They kind of feel as if they're 16 years of age again. What would your advice be, just either on that first day or their whole approach to work experience?
Be open-minded.
And don't.
Yeah, just be yourself, be open-minded, be a sponge, soak up all the experience, but equally don't be silent, because there's a huge amount of experience that you'll have had that we can benefit from as well. So it's all about sharing knowledge and experience and understandings, especially when it comes to perception as well. If you don't understand something, say, because we might be communicating something in a certain way and have been for a while. That fresh set of eyes and ears coming in could actually teach us something where we can improve.
Okay, and just a question to Caroline on that point. Obviously, we have seen how successful work experience can be. Sometimes it can actually lead to that job opportunity, but more importantly, just give you a feel for what you do and maybe don't want to do off the back of it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of live case studies, one where it's worked and one where it's not, but actually it's worked both ways. These work placements allow you as the candidate to test the discipline that you think you want to do. I'll always remember a sergeant a few years ago, after a couple of days on site, said, "Thank Christ that's not for the rest of my life," and he moved on to something else. But equally, it is always also a conduit to employment. A success story recently, and actually it was in the health and safety space with one of our other tier ones. A chap had a week on site. The project team thought he was absolutely fantastic, of course. They didn't have an opportunity on that site, so they put him on another site, which actually was better for him because it was nearer home. 2 weeks later, he secured a role as a health and safety advisor. So it was a really, really good opportunity for this guy to just show his strength, because sometimes you don't jump off a CV, but if we can get you on site, embed you with that team, with the organisation, you can work both ways. Does it work for you? Does it not? Does it work for them? Remember, you are interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. Okay,
perfect. Right, a question to Ian Lech. Ian, you're living the dream as far as some of our candidates are concerned. So obviously coming into a live operational role in that project management space, and obviously you're promoted within it. If you were to receive a military CV, what are you looking for? What would make you consider them as a viable option?
I think it's similar to what my colleagues have said. It's a different way of looking at things. It's very easy for myself and my colleagues and the business to just take engineers who have done a civil engineering degree, and they've all been taught the same thing at the same universities, and we keep doing the same thing as we've always done it. And that gets us nowhere. Actually, Skanska, a massive part of Skanska, is about our diversity and inclusion. And the big thing around bringing military or ex-military personnel into the business is looking at things differently. I've worked with a lot of ex-military during my time with Skanska, and they've carried out various different roles. Yes, health and safety, very good at that, a very personable approach rather than being health and safety police, as Kenneth was saying. But then from a logistics perspective as well, brilliant people from logistics, because it's what they did during their military service, and they looked at things differently, actually into the finer detail. But then with project management as well, again, it's getting into that finer detail and looking at things differently.
And would you be looking for a PM qual on their CV? Would that strengthen it in any way? So the PMs, Prince 2s or Agiles?
That would certainly strengthen any interest,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily absolutely required. Even if it's just an interest there with, you know, the passion and the drive to that's where they want to go and that's what they want to do. There's the ability within the business to get that training whilst being part of the business.
Okay, and if you had just a typical Royal Engineer, 10 years experience, so maybe kind of late 20s, early 30s, maybe come through a carpentry and joinery trade route and then it progressed up to kind of corporal sergeant, would you be looking at a kind of PM role for them? Would you advise, as Helen said, that kind of step forward, step back and leap forwards? Would it be an assistant PM?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on what sort of project they're looking at within infrastructure, because a PM, say perhaps within our water sector, is different to a PM on a large highways project.
Yeah.
So a PM or APM in the water sector is looking after a smaller amount of work and is a really good training ground. When we're looking at sort of hundreds of £1 million road projects, a PM is actually looking after a quite substantial amount of work. So it might be called something slightly different in, say, an agent or sub-agent, but it's that route in through project management and giving them a route through the business and industry.
Okay, and you mentioned the buddying up system. So is this part of like the onboarding just to help somebody new settle into the business? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Settling into the business, settling into the project or team that they're joining as well. It's very much about having that inclusive culture, making sure everybody feels at home. And like Kenneth was saying about, we use abbreviations for everything for the sake of it within the industry. That's one part of it, you know, without sort of going red-faced and being called out for not knowing what you do. It is a quiet word to a buddy. What on earth are they going on about there?
And when you've got maybe an individual that could be a site manager, but is as capable of being maybe an assistant or a project manager, is it just needs must? It's whatever the business is looking for and that's where they'll be placed? Or do sometimes is career advice given as part of that interview? I mean, what do you personally do?
I think it very much depends on the individual. I think if there's a passion and a drive there that's seen, then there's further discussions. A lot of the time, though, obviously, it comes down to geographical preference, the needs of the business. Obviously, we are a business, so we're not necessarily going to bring people into the business for roles that we haven't got available. But if there's that drive and passion, it's very much, it's not just round pegs in round holes. You know, it's working and moulding for the best of the business and the individuals.
And we're finding that sometimes from the artillery, some of the candidates are coming to saying I'd be good in an operational role. Is that a discipline? Is that a role within Skanska? How would you interpret that role if you were to hear that?
Operational from what perspective? From a trades perspective?
No, so they maybe didn't come from the construction or engineering part of the armed forces, but live operational environments, live exercises, live tours, and sometimes the kind of operations management. It's like the new title everybody's using as opposed to project management. So it's just if you're seeing or hearing that, what would your initial thought be?
I think, again, it's that if that individual comes across with the ability to look at things differently, actually manage, they've got the personable skills to talk to different people and actually understand different elements. And it's not understanding from day one, like you say, if they haven't come from construction, but it's being able to move with the change and understand different things and grow.
Right. Okay. No, that's perfect. Any last bits of advice that you're seeing? Obviously, you said that you've worked for the armed forces. What makes them great, or any good practices or behaviours you've seen that you want to just keep encouraging?
The individuals that I've worked with from the armed forces, the big things has been looking at things differently. Absolutely fantastic, but also the drive we work in a high pressured environment. You know, budgets are really tight. There's always time constraints, but absolutely number one, we need to ensure everybody goes home safe. You know, but it is that drive and looking at things differently that make all that achievable.
No, I appreciate that, Ian. Thank you for that. I'm sure there's people that are going to want to be connected to you, so thank you for coming on the call.
No worries.
Some questions to Helen. Helen, you kicked off by saying kind of regular in the army and then a reservist in the RAF. What was that actual switch like? There's not many people that have done that, have they?
No, and I do get a bit of banter. So yeah, when I left regular service in the army, I automatically joined the reserves, and that was just a piece that Skanska accepted. And I joined the reserves primarily to do my bobsleigh role, but then as I got more experience in Skanska, I realised actually I wanted a proper reserve role as well as doing the bobsleigh, and I couldn't find one within the Army Reserve, because I'd jumped from the Royal Logistic Corps over to the Army Medical Services as a med support officer, and then trying to find a reserve role as a med support officer was quite tricky. So just this wonderful opportunity arose where the Air Force were recruiting for Air Regional Employer Engagement Officers, and I went for interview, and they said, yeah, actually, why not? And my transition over, so I kept my rank, so I jumped from Lieutenant Colonel Army over to Wing Commander Air Force in the flash of an eye, and it's been fantastic. And I could now go out into the Northeast and talk to employers at business forums and talk about the Armed Forces Covenant, the Bronze, Silver, Gold pathway, and the importance of having reservists in a civilian organisation. And I can, not only talk the talk, I can walk the walk, and then, just relay to everybody. The reason I'm sat talking to you here in uniform today is because my civilian employer allows me and supports me to continue on my reserve journey. So for me, it's been brilliant. I know there are quite a few out there who've switched from Army to Air Force, and in fact Navy to Air Force, and done it the other way around as well. I was really fortunate that I had a very, very easy transition. One moment I was Army, next I was Air Force, and it was seamless. But I'm now 18 months into my Air Force role. I'm really keen to do more with the reserves, and I think if it got to a point where I was offered a promotion with the reserves, I think Skanska's way of working, and Lisa and Manny have both touched on it, would actually give me the opportunity, I think, to potentially reduce my hours and increase my reserve hours. So I would then look at a formal piece where I would say, right, instead of doing my 5 days a week and whatever I'm doing, I'm going to cut a day out, which will take a salary decrease, understandably. But Skanska is flexible enough to allow individuals to do that and go and do, so many people have a 3 or 4 day working week. And he used to say that couldn't happen to me when my daughter gets a little bit older and I can do more with the reserves. So it just really complements. And what I noticed was, because Skanska are gold, that was a real selling point for me. I look at, and I'm not saying if you've just got silver, that's bad, because it's not as terrific, but because Skanska offer that 15 days additional paid leave, it allows me to maintain my leave with my family, because my daughter has stupidly long school holidays. So I'm able to take my leave and spend time with her and take additional unpaid leave, as well as have my reserve leave as well. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
Again, from the Army to the RAF, it's just, for us civilians, we might not be able to understand just how important that was, but it shows how agile and flexible you are, but your approach to situations like that, whether it was logistics, the senior PM to pre-con, you're just always up for the challenge. It's new and exciting times. And I think probably as civilians, we are not as flexible when it comes to things like that. But that's your super strength, isn't it? That's your superpower. Just on the pre-con kind of work winning bids piece. So we are seeing some of our more senior candidates coming to us feeling that would be a really good place for them to land, to be able to win work or be able to strategize and plan and be tactical when it comes to bids. Do you think somebody that's had maybe a longer 35-year service could transition into that role? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, very much, because there are sort of two strings to my bow, and actually building have been incredible because they've adapted to my skills, or lack of them indeed. And I'm doing business development as well as bid directing. So yeah, absolutely. What are the key strengths for those who've served? And I suppose the longer they've served, the more network they've developed, is getting out there and engaging, and not just sitting behind a desk and scared to pick up a phone or set up face to face. It's fantastic when you've got individuals who can just get out and engage, and sell yourself and your organization, but also listen and build relationships. So business development is fantastic. I am brand new to bidding, courtesy of the Strategic Defence Review. In the whole of the construction industry in defence, we know that a lot of bids have been, I wouldn't say stalled, they've just been delayed. So I haven't actually got my hands dirty in the bidding. But what is fantastic is, we've all talked about feeling comfortable and safe enough to ask those questions. My line manager's brilliant. He knows I don't have the experience, but he doesn't care. He knows that I will speak to and rely on my subject matter experts. It's those skills of that collaboration, that stakeholder engagement, communication, leadership, and getting out there and, trying to build a team that will stand me in good stead in the pre-construction world. And I think I've gone from operational, being on site pre-COVID 5 days a week in the office or out on site, then went to hybrid, and now I'm in pre-construction. I'm working from home quite a lot of the time. I will go out to all the client meetings, and I'm in London, when the holidays aren't on with school, maybe once a week, but I certainly get into London once a fortnight minimum. But there's no pressure, because with my role, as long as I'm doing that stakeholder engagement and I'm getting out and about and into meetings face to face, and indeed teams when it has to happen, it works really well. So yeah, I think pre-construction in the past has probably been an area that nobody's really focused on, because nobody really knew much about it, and I certainly didn't. But it's all about work winning. It's the front end, and without the work winning, you don't have the project. So it's a really exciting area to be involved in. I'm so fortunate that I'm in defence, because I have got a strong defence network from my time in the military. But it doesn't necessarily have to be work winning in defence. It can be work winning elsewhere in the rail sector, the highway sector, the water sector. It's just putting those skills into play.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a small team, but they are feeding the rest of the business. You're so critical in that space. I think Kenneth's assuming that you're staying in better hotels now you're RAF, so you might have raised the bar. Yeah, even within Skanska. Don't do holiday inns anymore.
No, we check in, we don't dig in.
There you go.
Maybe that was the appeal.
Just one other thing, Helen, obviously kind of values, culture, it's been a recurrent theme, I think, with every speaker today, and that's everything from behaviours from leadership teams to respectful behaviours and how you communicate with each other, through to that is like an ethical footprint in the work that you do. Do you feel as if that is what differentiates Skanska from their peers and competitors in industry? It's the values, it's the culture piece. Is that why the staff seem to stay and seem to thrive?
Absolutely. For me, it's all about the people. And every time I've moved around Skanska, it's because I've got itchy feet. I want to stay in Skanska because of the people, but it's been really heart-wrenching leaving the teams, because I have worked and continue to work with some incredible people. And it's that values and standards, our inclusion and diversity thread that goes throughout. And it's right from the very top, from Katie Dowding, our CEO, who's an absolute advocate of the armed forces community and supports all the employee networks, to the extent that we have executive vice presidents as network sponsors, and that goes for all the employee networks. And it's all led from the very top. And it is just a fantastic place to work. And if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be here now. And I certainly wouldn't be, sat talking about, the virtues and the values of Skanska. I said earlier about finding your tribe. It's absolutely critical. You've got individuals who spent all their life from leaving school in the military and institutionalized, and it is a really scary world, the civilian world, the real world. When you step outside, you're not closeted anymore. And actually Skanska have embraced me, have embraced all of those I know in the military network, and we've been really looked after. And it genuinely is a great place to work and develop.
Yeah, and I mean, the armed forces really wear their cap badge with immense pride. They even sometimes tattoo it on them, don't they? It's so you want to move into an organisation where you can give your heart and soul and feel respected. So, I mean, that's fantastic to hear that. A question to Manny. You've been sitting ever so quiet. I know you're the chattiest amongst the group, Manny, so thank you for that. So
All right.
in terms of the roles within Skanska, so a lot of kind of management roles, supervisory roles, for those interested in maybe some of the trade roles, would that be via your supply chain or subcontractors, or do they exist within Skanska?
Some do, yes, permanently, but predominantly those go through our supply list. So we partner up with a agency called Hayes, and they do all of our temporary requirements. So we do get them quite often as well. And we do have local agreements with some of the sites. I know when it comes to one of our operating units, cementation in Doncaster, Lisa's area, they have agreements with local agencies, but those are the people in charge of it very much recommend candidates to go through that. So definitely is something we can look at. The trades are always crucial to the team. I wouldn't say they're always on the permanent side of it, definitely on the temporary side of it. And even if they come to us saying we're looking for a trades role, we could always recommend them to our supply list as well, so we can get the right person in.
Okay, and are there any kind of recurring questions that you repeatedly get that you can just advise our audience with? Do people ask, should I transition on my current salary? What does a typical package look like? What types of questions do you often receive?
We get the salary question a lot. That's probably the most common one, because Skanska we don't advertise our salary a lot of the time, where we ask them about their requirements and either tell them whether they fit into the bandings or not. A lot of the times candidates will want that experience of going to the interview in order to, see if it's a right fit for them. So the salary one's quite a common question. The hybrid working is a really common question as well, and I think the easiest one to say it is role dependent on the hybrid working. Yes, Skanska have a flexible working policy, and it's no different to what anyone said on the call. There are sometimes certain roles that do require a bit more site presence.
And on the CV, the all-important CV, do you very quickly just sieve out the poor quality, lack of detail type CVs? Do you read through them? Do you read every word? What does that look like?
So I think we read through every CV that comes in, and we match it to what the job description says or what we're looking for. There has been occasions, Helen has helped out with this a lot, where I've sent her military CVs and I've said, can you help me read this, or can you see what role this person would be suitable for? Yes, we read through every CVs. I think me and Lisa we're probably quite one of the active members of the recruitment team that do this. I think we probably overdo it, but we've got a big habit of speaking to all candidates as well. So that way we just find it easier. It's really easy to look at a CV and just think yes or no, but actually some people, especially where I've noticed ex-forces, they describe themselves very different to what they put down on their CV. And actually, when I do have someone like that, I actually send a separate document of this is what they do, that might not be on their CV, so please look at it from this point of view. So if I find a CV is not detailed enough, or if a CV is not aligned to what the job description is, but I feel like they're trying to get there, I'll always elaborate it a lot more from speaking to them. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well. I think Kenneth put it there earlier. I think that's a great tool. I'm happy to share my LinkedIn profile with people if they do want to connect with me, and also just to get more advice on how to write CVs, or if they're going for a role and they're not sure what skill set to put down. Always happy to help that.
And I mean, we could spend an hour just talking about CVs alone, but to the veterans, to Kenneth, to Helen, or to Sophie, just quick tips or top tips on CVs. If somebody's holding their CV in their hands, they're keen as mustard to get it over to Skanska by the end of the day, what quick advice would you give to them just before they press send? What would make that CV a bit stronger? Sophie?
I would say a very clear outline of what their most recent experiences are. Those are most recent. I think I can't see if Sophie's still on the call, but Sophie would be prime example, because I found Sophie's CV online, and actually her CV read really, really well. And I use that as a pinpoint of like, that's what a good CV looks, because she put it very clearly, every role that she's done, and she was very clearly what she'd learned in forces, she geared up to roles that she was applying for. Sophie didn't actually apply for the role that she did. I found her CV online, but what role Sophie was looking at was actually really, really clear on her CV. So I would say have a clear plan of what you want to go into, as well as courses or anything that you've done, achievements as well, because sometimes it's not always about what you've done, it's what you've achieved as well. If you've got qualifications, put them on the top, be proud of what you've done, really highlight that.
And to Sophie?
Yeah, I'll reiterate what Manny was just saying. You know, if I'm looking at CVs, you can imagine there's piles of them. So the first thing I'm looking at is the qualifications right at the top. You know, I'm not going to read the opening 2 paragraphs that you've put there. It may be great, but I'm not going to read it. I'm going to look at your qualifications, clear bullet points of where you've worked and what positions, whether it's military or, you know, civilian. And then what you've achieved. Like Manny said, if you've had some achievements, stick them right at the top. And you want to have your CV on a page to 2 pages maximum, depending on what your work experience is like, because we're only looking at that first bit. So if you can get it in that very first section, you've won already.
People are shocked by the statistic of I was on a webinar, and they threw the question out there, how long do you think an average employer looks at a CV? And, you know, the usual comments came out: a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
10 seconds.
It's about 10 seconds. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And that's how quick it is. So achievements, what you've done. And if you tailor the CV to the company and the job description, that's brilliant as well.
Perfect. Yeah, even better. Listen, thank you to Lisa, Kenneth, Ian, Helen, Manny, Chani and Sophie for their incredible contribution today, and to our military community watching. Skanska really are an exceptional employer, and as Helen has stated, she has found her second tribe. So remember, you're not alone. BuildForce are here to help take it further. So please get in touch if you've got any questions. Finally, enjoy the warm weather. Best wishes to you and your family, particularly with those with little people at home over the summer holidays. But please look after yourself and take care. CVs and comments to BuildForce, and we will connect you with Skanska. But thank you very much to our speakers. I've got a feeling we're going to be asking you back in about 6-12 months just to do another one of these, because it's been hugely popular. But thank you so much, everyone. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Good luck.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.